Hello, nerdy romantics. Today on the podcast, we are talking with Carla Luna. Carla's book, or her newest book in the Romancing the Ruins series, Tour Wars. It is out this month as of this recording. It came out March 5th. And we are going to talk Tour Wars. We're going to talk archaeology. What's it all about? And why are these people so cutthroat? Wow, I didn't know it was going to be like that. And I've got to get a little my nerd pop culture in. So we are going to talk a little bit about Indiana Jones and maybe the Mummy.
Yes, please.
Possibly. All right, so stay tuned with us. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Okay, Carla, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. So we are talking about Tour Wars and talking about the Romancing the Ruins. Did I get that right?
Yep,
Series.
that's the series name.
And we are in book 3 of that series right now, right?
Yes.
So, first off, for those nerdy romantics out there who may not know who you are, Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in this whole writing romance novels anyway?
So I started writing when I was 8, but my first, and this is kind of a joke that I tell at a lot of conferences, my first actual book was biblical fanfic. So it was Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and I wanted to sort of change the course of history and give Jesus a happy ending and give him some romance. So I wrote this when I was 14, this like epic saga. I never published it, but that was my first official book. And then I wrote a lot of fantasy. Yeah.
I love this. And so I'm sorry, you wrote your first official fantasy. I'm sorry, I just got really giddy
No.
right there.
It is pretty funny. I wrote fantasy in my 20s, sci-fi and fantasy for fun. I was in a sci-fi fantasy group in college, writing group. So I did a lot of like just fun stuff. And then I tried for years to get an agent when I was like in my 40s. No, I had one for a while. I tried traditional publishing. It didn't quite work for me. And so in 2021, I decided to self-publish my romances. And that's when I kind of got started with that.
Awesome. And so you are writing this particular series from the perspective of archaeologists, but you are an archaeologist yourself, yes?
I'm a former archaeologist. So I got my degree from UCLA. I went on a bunch of digs. I worked for a museum called the Getty in Los Angeles. I had a lot of great experiences, but eventually when I had kids, I was like, I couldn't really work in the field. So I kind of gave it up. And then I really always missed it. And I decided when I was writing romance that I really wanted to set romances in the world of archaeology because there was always a lot of shenanigans when I went on my digs. Like a lot of stuff happened that was personal or behind the scenes. And I thought, oh, this would be a great focus of a series.
Right. Oh my gosh. And you can tell that in this book that there's like serious shenanigans going on. People do a lot of stuff on digs.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, oh my,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
But so you're writing this actually from a place of, you are writing what you know. This is the life out there.
Yes, I did. I used to go on digs every summer, usually for like 6 to 8 weeks in different countries, and had lots of different experiences. And so I know about the day-to-day nitty-gritty, but to be honest, the actual sort of fact part of it kind of got boring to me. Like, I didn't want to write about pottery types or, soil levels or reconstruct stuff. I wanted to write about the fun stuff, which is why fiction was a lot better for me than becoming like a PhD in teaching or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say, doesn't that kind of lead towards teaching or maybe
Usually,
your
yeah.
own Nat Geo show or
Yes.
something like that? But yeah, but writing romance, I had to have you on the podcast when okay, so y'all know I tell a little bit of a story of how I found different authors. And I did a newsletter swap with Carla. That was last year, I
Yeah,
think.
I think with Stardate, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Stardate was mine, and yours was I can't remember what the name of
it might
yours
have been. I
was
don't know if it was Field
at the
Rules or
time.
Troy's, one of my archaeology ones, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was Field Rules. I
Okay,
think it was Field Rules.
that's
So, yes, that was it.
yeah.
That was it. And so, y'all, see, this is why you got to be on my newsletter, y'all, because I do these swaps now, and I am actually not just saying, hey, here's a cool book. I'm actually saying, hey, I might want to read this book. Let me talk to the author. Let me figure this all out. And so here we are. We did an author swap, and I just really like the fact that you come
Mhm.
from a nerdy and romance perspective. I was like, oh my gosh, she's one of the
Yeah.
nerdy romantics. She's one of us. I love it. I love it. And the fact that it's an archaeology band is so cool. But before I get too giddy into myself, you have another series out there, right? Is that
Yes.
also archaeology as well, or is that something different? Tell us about your other series you have out there.
Yeah, so the Blackwood Cellars series is my first series, and now those are 3 books, all set at destination weddings. And I started with that because, as an inroads to romance, I wanted to write something that people love, and I feel like people love like wedding rom-coms and wedding movies, and it's just a
Mm-hmm.
good entry point. And so one of them is set in Maui, one's in Door County, Wisconsin, which is a big fall destination, and one is at Christmas. So they're all wedding romances, the first 3 books I wrote.
So, yeah, so with those, you're bringing in the I know about these places,
Hmm.
yes, and and see, this is what I really liked about Tour Wars, y'all. Without doing too many spoilers here, I'm trying not to do any spoilers. I love the fact that you are describing this place from like I want to go there.
Hmm. Yeah.
I already wanted to go to the Amalfi Coast. So this is set in Pompeii, y'all. Well, most of it is set in Pompeii, or near the Pompeii site there. And but they do take a tour of Italy, and I wanted to go to the Amalfi Coast. And what you said about the Amalfi Coast from a tour guide perspective, I thought, okay, maybe I want to plan this whole trip a little bit more where I don't get caught in the tourist trap, because it's very much a touristy
Hmm.
kind of city versus I'm going there to relax kind of place, and whatever kind of place, which is kind of what I was thinking. It was kind of a chill kind of place and not too touristy. But as you talk about that in Tour Wars, I was like, okay, let me rethink my trip.
It is beautiful. I mean, it's such a beautiful area that it's worth going to. I just would say I went to Italy as research for this trip, and I went in April of last year, and it was still really busy. But that isn't even the high season. And so,
Wow.
I mean, I was surprised at how busy like Pompeii was and the Colosseum and the Amalfi Coast. And isn't the high season, but I think a lot of people are traveling now because they
Yeah.
couldn't. So I feel like
Yes.
if you go off season, it's still a much better bet. And you could go just about anywhere and it wouldn't be too bad. Like if you go maybe April or October, just kind of not in the summer. Summer is when like, it's like anywhere. It's like where a lot of tourists come.
Right, right. So yeah, so off season for them is like fall,
Hmm.
winter. Okay.
Yeah, early
Cuz they're kind
spring.
of yeah, okay.
Not
All right,
Easter.
got
Don't
it.
go at Easter because everyone
Oh,
goes at
I
Easter
definitely
because of
wouldn't then.
the Pope and Rome and all that religious stuff.
Exactly. That's a no.
No.
That is a no, y'all. Oh gosh. And so you're kind of you're kind of just tapping into all my loves here. I mean, I love, even though I don't monetarily may have enough money to do a lot of traveling, I love travel and the idea of traveling and the idea of going and seeing new places. I mostly like love the landscape part of it, and of course the nerd pop culture part of it. When I saw archaeology and I saw people going on digs, the first thing I thought was Indiana
Yep.
Jones. And I love Indiana Jones, y'all.
Me
That's so
too.
nerdy to me. I love it. And then the second thing was, in which this made me want to go back and get your earlier books, because I think Field Rules. I can't remember where Field Rules is set. One of
Cyprus.
them is set in Cyprus. One of them is set kind of like in Turkey, or kind
Yeah.
of like in that
So
area.
Troy Story is set in Turkey. It's in
Turkey.
Istanbul and Troy, and I was there in November 2022. And then Field Rules is Cyprus, which a lot of people don't know where it is. It's actually really close to Turkey, but the culture is Greek. The food is Greek.
Yes.
The language is Greek. It's like it was. I don't know if it was. It's its own country, but originally part of it was part of Greece, I think. And so it's a lot like Greece in terms of the culture and the food and everything.
Right, right. And so kind of when the characters are kind of talking about that area, it also kind of made me think, cuz you're kind of in that Mediterranean area, so of course it's making me think Mummy and
Yep.
Egypt, and
Yeah.
making me think about that, and I love the Mummy,
Me
y'all. Who
too.
doesn't love the Mummy? So you're just hitting on all these, and then the fact that your first series is Destination Weddings. My weekend DIY girl side loves a good wedding.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all about a good wedding. So I'm gonna pick those up as well. So yay. Yeah, you're just hitting on everything that I really like right now. And I'm hoping that everybody else is out there nerding out about this and loving this as well. What I want to get into now is a little bit about Tour Wars and about how you came up with this. And we are going to talk tour guides, because wow. So how did you come up with the whole premise of this story? Did these characters come to you first? Were they talked about, since this is book 3?
hmm
Were your fans already saying, "Hey, we need this Amelia TJ connection here"? What happened? How did this happen?
Okay, so in Field Rules, I introduced TJ as the obnoxious secondary character who bragged and was kind of annoying, and he was like the comic relief. So anytime things got too tense, TJ would show up and start bragging or boasting, and he was sometimes over the top, but he was kind of likable. And in the end of that book, he gets a little more humility. And then in
Mm-hmm.
Troy Story, he's on the Troy dig, and that's when we meet Amelia, and she's his rival, and they're stuck together, and he's from Harvard, she's from Yale, and she's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's from Chicago, so they have all these built-in rivalries. So in Troy Story, again, they're kind of comic relief. They're arguing a lot. They're battling with each other. They had this misunderstanding over a hotel room. So I knew that I was sort of setting them up because I really wanted to write a rivals to lover story. And I was like, okay, I'm going to set them up in Troy Story so that when people read Tour Wars, you can read it as a standalone, but if you've read Troy Story, you're like, oh, there's TJ and Amelia. Let's see what happens when they're stuck together.
Yeah, and boy, what does happen when they are stuck together? I love this,
Yeah.
because I love a good enemies to lovers. They're more, like you said, they're more rivals
Mm-hmm.
to lovers
Yeah.
versus enemies to lovers. And I think I like that dynamic better, because it's like built in, I'm supposed to argue with you, but built in, I really love this
Yeah. Yeah.
arguing with you.
Exactly.
This is like what we do, kind
Yeah.
of
It
thing.
gets them excited, and they respect each other. That's part of the key to me, was that they respect each other and they know that the other person is smart and capable, but they're really frustrated by them. And this person is competing for the same jobs. They have different theories, archaeological theories. So I had a lot of fun building that up.
Yeah, yeah. And it shows because they have a lot of fun arguing with each other. Oh gosh, but to me at heart, TJ is he's kind of a little bit of a beta hero to me.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
kind of, I mean, he's protective. He's got a soft
Mm-hmm.
spot. I mean, he's got a little bit of cinnamon roll energy there, but he's very beta,
Oh, definitely. And he's very
Yeah.
nerdy. I mean, he's the one who wants to
Yes.
watch Gladiator and likes those old school movies like Clash of the Titans. And I think at one point he uses a Star Wars reference. And so he's
Yes.
definitely really nerdy.
Yeah, he is. He's totally nerdy for everybody that loves those nerd Easter eggs.
Hmm.
This is full of them.
Yeah.
Full of them. I had to think cuz I was like Clash of the Titans, is that the one with the Kraken in it? Like the new one? The
No,
newer
this
one?
is the original that came out in the 80s, and it's really terrible. When I decided to include it, I watched the trailer for it, and it has Harry Hamlin all like oiled up with no shirt on. I think it has like Laurence Olivier as Zeus. It's really old. It's got stop motion animation. It's really dated, but
Oh
it's
my
just
god.
it's and I saw it in the theaters because I'm not that old, and I remember being excited about it, and after thinking, well, that wasn't very good, and it really isn't.
But a lot of that stuff really doesn't age very well,
No.
though. It just doesn't, especially when they have to do like, and like the stop, animation kind of things. If they have to do anything to make it look, supernatural or, not quite right or whatever.
Mhm.
It doesn't age well. So far CGI has been okay, but now with 4K and with 1080p and 4K, kind of resolution, you can even see like in the older, not so older pictures, but when they started doing CGI, you can kind
Mhm.
of tell
Yeah.
sometimes that it's CGI. It's
It
like
I don't always
weird.
like that. And I actually when I am a huge fan of the original Star Wars trilogy, and when I
Yeah.
watched it with my son the first time, I was like, okay, all this stuff is models. So there's no CGI. And my son's like, are you serious? I'm like, seriously, no CGI. They had to do all this by hand.
Right.
And I was like, he
Yes.
was just blown away by that. He was like, really? Wow.
And to me, aside of the controversy and stuff that The Mandalorian had, oh gosh, I hated that it had that. It looks so much like the original Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I'm like, wow. It looks that way, but then at the same time is very here now new,
Hmm.
but it very much gives you that old school Star Wars
Yeah.
feeling like when
Yeah.
you were watching, the first trilogy that was made, it's giving you all those vibes and I'm just like I just love
I
this,
do. I really liked it. I liked the Tatooine stuff. I liked the way
Yeah.
it was just like he was salt going into small towns and like helping out. That sort
Yeah.
of like almost like
So
the
awesome.
original Incredible Hulk, where it was like every episode he'd do something different in a different town.
Yes.
So I like
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Exactly. It
love
was
that.
it's very episodic,
Hmm.
but then, it does have that, kind of back there arc,
Yep.
with Baby Yoda and everything that actually keeps you watching. Oh
Mhm.
my
My friend made me
gosh.
this a little
I am
turkey.
so loving this. If you are just listening to this on audio, y'all gonna have to just go to YouTube and look at it. She just showed us a baby Yoda. Oh my gosh, little Grogu. I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, I mean, when I was thinking, getting back to Tour Wars,
Yes.
when I was thinking about Clash of the Titans, I was thinking about like the newer one
Hmm.
with the Kraken.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, I know it's not that one. And then when you said Harry Hamlin,
Yeah.
I'm a Real Housewives fan. That's one of my guilty pleasures. And I've watched the Beverly Hills one. So, I'm always, watching Lisa, Harry Hamlin.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
called And she actually calls him by his whole name, Harry Hamlin.
That's
And
funny.
I'm like, that's your husband, right?
Yeah.
And she calls him by his full name,
That's
Harry
funny.
Hamlin. So it's like, you know who that
Yeah.
is. But he's a star in his own right.
Mhm.
So that's what it is. But yeah, when they were watching, when they're going and they're watching all these, or when you're talking about all these old movies in tour wars, I was thinking, wow, even though I may not have, like, for instance, Clash of the Titans, I don't remember watching that one, but even though I haven't watched a lot of these, I know them. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like, okay, I'm a bigger nerd than I thought I was. But I'm so happy that I'm in this spot because you are just totally immersed and you are loving their whole vibe, especially, well, TJ's whole
Yeah.
vibe. One thing that I thought was very eye-opening in this book was, and I lowered my voice like I was really getting serious there, right? There is a serious
Mhm.
point, but this is not it. However, it was interesting to actually see them go be tour guides and to hear it from that perspective.
Mhm.
I wanted to know, are you have you ever been a tour guide? Is this like how we act as tourists?
Not really. I have lived in tourist towns for much of my life. I grew up on Vancouver Island in Victoria, which is very touristy, and worked a little bit in the tourism industry there. And then where I live now, Cedarburg, Wisconsin, is a huge tourist draw. A lot of people come from Chicago and Illinois, and they come here like for the weekends because we have a cute small town. We're like a Hallmark town, and they come, and I work in retail, so I deal with a lot of tourists. But the idea actually came when I was in Italy traveling. I went on a tour of Pompeii, and the advertisement is tours led by a real archaeologist. And so the guy was, giving his spiel. He didn't seem very into it. And I said, "Are you an archaeologist?" And he said, "Well, yes, of course." And I was like, "Well, how come you're not in a dig?" And he said, "Well, this is just my side job. I'm an archaeologist," and in an Italian accent. Of course, I can't do Italian,
Right.
but of course I'm an archaeologist. I just do this on the weekends. I'm part of this dig. I'm working at Pompeii. And I met another one like that too. And I was like, well, this is like a whole side hustle for these people because archaeology doesn't always pay very well. It's not always consistent work. There's a lot of archaeologists out there. And I got the idea like, oh, that would be interesting. Like TJ and Amelia start at Pompeii, but they get this side gig as tour guides, and then they have to deal with all the tourists and questions and all kinds of issues.
Oh wow, yeah. Because as I was reading that part, where they're taking them on the big tour, I was thinking, hey, I've never really been on a big tour like that where you are hanging out with the same people for like 10 or 12 days.
That
I
would be
didn't
a
know
lot.
that.
I've never done that
Yeah.
either. I've only done like 3-day tours, but
Mm-hmm.
I will actually fall. I watched a lot of like blogs or like vlogs or YouTubers who
Yeah.
had been on these, who ranked them and talked about them and took notes so I could find out what it was like. And then I read some people's blogs to get a sense, because I don't think I'd want to be with people for 10 days that I didn't know. I think the
Right.
longest tour I ever did was maybe a 5-day tour of Egypt back years ago, and it was great because I got to go to places I'd be nervous to go to on my own. But I got really tired of being around the same people, and some of them were more obnoxious than others.
Yeah. And yeah, some of these people, they're just a little bit too much to handle in this book. I'm like, oh my. But yeah, I've never been on it. I'm trying to think if there's any time that I have done that. But no, I've never been on a tour that's been like that long. But I do have some friends that have been on tours, like
Hmm.
destination tours that long. And these people are really invested. I mean, they are really like, we want this certain type of experience.
Hmm.
We are, you know, trying to, we're trying to see this place, that place, and we want to do it this way and that way, and then people sometimes are coming back on the same tours.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, didn't you see it before?
Right.
I'm like, oh, really? Oh, but yeah, but some of the dynamics there with the tours, the fact that you have to keep up with other tour guides, their
Mm-hmm.
schedules. So you have that dynamic. And wow, some of these, at least one of the other tour guides is very special in this book. And then you also have to keep up with whatever the regulations are of the
Yeah.
area. I did not realize that the tour buses wouldn't be able to wait in certain areas. Is that like an Italian thing? Is there that much pollution and
Yeah.
stuff going on
I
there?
actually had to research that because I was reading articles about like tour buses, and I found out that they're not allowed to linger by the monuments. Actually, for a while they weren't even allowed to drive by the monuments, but they
Oh my
can't linger
gosh.
because of the air pollution. And the air pollution in Rome isn't terrible, but it's not great, and there's a lot of people. Unlike something like the Colosseum is right out there in the open, like it's exposed to the air, it's exposed to like all the bus and auto fumes, and the traffic in Rome is like really crazy. There's tons of scooters and motorcycles and buses and cars. So it's a lot of, bad environmental pollution for this ancient site.
Oh wow. You see these areas on TV and it's like it looks like it's just out there in the open and nobody's around it and everything like that. And now as I'm thinking about it, it's like, and as I'm reading in Tour Wars, I'm like, this is it's a bustling city.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of areas that you are showing in the book are bustling city
Hmm.
areas that just happen to have like 1,000-year-old histories,
Right.
that you
Yeah.
can, historical things that you can see. That kind of combination is cool, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I didn't know that. I thought I would, like if I was going to Italy and seeing the Colosseum or whatever. And for some reason, in my mind, when I'm thinking Pompeii, I'm thinking it's just somewhere where there's not a lot of people. It's like black, and then there's cavernous areas where they've dug out the city that got
Hmm.
covered by the volcanic ash when Mount Vesuvius, exploded. And in the background, there's a volcano
Yeah.
structure there. But as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, I'm rethinking how I look at this, not as like some kind of barren land or this historical thing is just out there by itself and you can just walk up to it. This is more like trying to get into a Taylor Swift concert.
Oh
This
yeah.
is serious.
I mean, it's more like Disneyland or something. When I went to
Yes.
Pompeii, there were huge lines to get in, and I was with the tour guide, so we got to cut those lines. But even still, we'd
Oh,
gather around one area, and there'd be other groups all gathered around. Like there's certain points of interest, and there was just and we had to wear those little wireless headsets, and the person had a microphone because it was so hard to hear with all the people. And they have
wow.
constant tours going through there, like it's constant. And it was April, not even the summer. And it's a really neat area because so much is preserved. There's like shop fronts and like stores and villas and beautiful architecture. A lot of stuff's well preserved, but there are a lot of people.
Oh wow. I'm really going to have to rethink and prepare myself when I go there because if I want to do the tourist thing, I need to make sure that I'm ready for Disneyland everywhere I go.
But not everywhere is like that. I will say, when I went to visit Cyprus, where Field Rules is set, I went in what was 2022, so things were still opening up. But I went to the site where I had worked, where it was just called the House of Paphos, which is like a Roman villa, and it was practically empty. There was maybe like a dozen other people there. It was March, it was kind of rainy, but still, it was pretty empty. And there are places in Turkey that I went. I went to Troy in November, again, almost empty. So sometimes it just depends on where you're going. I think Italy's always going to be popular, But there are a lot of places that aren't as crowded, especially in the off season.
Yeah. So everybody, make sure that you research where you're going. If you're going to, any of these places that we're talking about, or any of these places that Carla has written about, make sure you research before you go, and don't go in, high tourist season if you don't like crowds, because it's not what you think. But now I want to get to a little bit about the romance and just about romance in general, and you writing romance in general. So first off, y'all, this is considered to me to be a steamy romance. Would you agree?
Well, some people have said, because my books are kind of slow burn, that they're not like high steam. They're open door, but they're not like high heat. And I have friends that write high heat, and my books are not close to theirs in steam levels.
Right. Yeah. I would agree that steamy is a spectrum, y'all, and Carla's on the lower end of the spectrum of steamy, but there just like she said, there are open door scenes. I'm kind of thinking you're kind of in like the camp with like a Talia Hibbert, or a camp like a Christina Lauren kind of a camp like that.
Yeah, not like Tessa Bailey or
no,
Katie
not a
Roberts
Tessa
or anything
Bailey.
like that.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is obviously, it's not dark romance. It's very much rom com, and it's so cute, totally cute rom com. Not only cute story, but I do have to mention, even though Carla has been sharing the covers, if you're on YouTube, you get to see the covers. But if you're not on YouTube, the covers are totally cute. For someone, and we do have a few writers out there who listen. So for someone who is an indie author, did you have a cover designer?
Yes.
Or are you just
I'm not
talented?
Artistic. Not at all. I found her through Reedsy, and her name is Bailey McGinn. She lives in Paris, and she's done all my covers. And the first one was kind of a test to see if we would work well together, and I loved it. And that one is actually this one. It's Blue Hawaiian. This is my first book, and I really loved it. And I was like, well, I want you to do my covers. And so she's done the covers for the first series and the second series.
Oh, yeah. And I love the covers.
Me too.
I love them. So with that, do you have kind of a theme? Because I noticed like you have a lot of pink on this one, but you do like, there's some areas where you have pink on all of them. Is it, or is it more so, or is it a blue more so on all of them?
I think, I'm not sure. That's sort of a mix, but usually my designer picks the background color. And I've liked that. I mean, she picked the orange for Troy Story and the pink for Tour Wars. I didn't ask her for a specific color, but I really liked them. I really like the colors stand out like that.
Yeah. I like them too. They all are kind of, going towards maybe a brand for you.
Yeah. I would definitely say when I'm set up at like a book fair, people will notice them because they really work well together.
Yeah. I love that. So for all those indie authors out there, we need to have a good relationship with our cover designer. We don't know how to design our own covers because I think that is what attracted me first. First you're talking about archaeology, and then I'm like, well, is this going to be am I going to be watching a PBS special kind of thing? But your covers are already just drawing us in and making this feel like we are going on a real adventure here.
Okay.
This is like, it's like, it's a little bit, it's a lot rom-com, but you're a little bit action adventure romance as well. I mean, especially with Tour Wars.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff happens there.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stuff going on. Some of the not so fun stuff, though, that goes on is with the Italian tour guide, tour company sort of owner maybe wanting to be owner,
Yeah.
and just the tour company itself that you had written in there, and it kind of made me think, okay, this is, it's not America, but even in America, people do shady stuff like that all the time. But it's not America, so maybe the rules are a little bit different there. I wanted to know kind of where you were coming from with that place. Did you just like, I just want to write a villain, or is this like from kind of an experience in different countries and how they do things like that? Because it was it's sort of not fun.
No, and I mean, sexism in the workplace is definitely an issue, and I think in this case, Amelia she's on there on a visa. She's not a part of the country. And when things happen that are bad, there's not much recourse she can take versus if you were in the United States, maybe you could go to HR or you could take it to a higher
Right,
level. And this is even just her
right,
side job. She's not even really legally supposed to be being a tour guide. It's just sort of a little side job. So for her, it's a tricky situation. But I will say there's a villain in my books. In Field Rules, the villain is the assistant dig director who's very sexist. And I had someone like that when I worked in Jordan. And I was always like, well, one day, dude, I'm going to write you in a book. I'm going to change your name, but you're going to get your comeuppance in a book because he actively discouraged me from being an archaeologist
oh my
and said,
gosh,
like, archaeology is no place for a woman. You should just be studying coins.
what?
He was pretty bad.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
He was
that is
and there
awful.
was two of us on his team, and we were working in the desert. If we wanted to go off and like relieve ourselves, we had to go kind of to the bushes. He'd be like, well, you need to ask my permission, you can't just wander off. And I was like, dude, I'm 25 years old, I can go to the bathroom by myself, thanks. And
Right.
we were friends with the Bedouin workers that were there, and we talked to them in Arabic, and he would get really mad because they would make jokes about him, and he was just awful. And I was
Oh
like, well, I
wow.
can't do anything now professionally, but the Grant villain in Field Rules, a lot of stuff I got was from him.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, for the guy in Tour Wars, I never had anybody like that directly doing stuff like that. But I think, like every woman, I've had my share of unwanted male
Mm-hmm.
attention,
Yeah.
people saying and doing things inappropriate and having to kind of, especially like in the 80s and 90s, just kind of smile and laugh and pretend that you're cool with it when you're
Exactly.
not. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit is not just in these tours, there's sexism, and with your dig, I mean, the archaeology profession in general, it seems like it's very cutthroat,
Yes.
and it's also very, it has the potential of being more sexist than maybe beauty products. I don't know, something else, something that I'm not doing. I'm in an industry right now, the energy and power industry, and it's very male heavy
Mm,
and white male heavy and very, yeah,
mm.
it has a tendency more so than other places that I've worked to be sexist. Nobody's been overtly sexist or anything towards me, but it favors kind of that area. So is that kind of how you feel about archaeology? Is it or is it becoming more diverse? Because to me it seems like if you're going on these digs in all of these different
Mhm.
countries, it would be a very, diverse, very, welcoming place and very collaborative kind of place. And it kind of isn't in this, at least in Tour Wars. So I was just kind of wondering,
So
is
I
that,
would say usually it is. Like I've been lucky.
yeah.
I've worked for female dig directors and male dig directors. I've worked with different groups of people. Like I said, I worked with the Bedouin in Jordan, which was a great experience. I've had a lot of really good experiences. And I think archaeology in general, there's a lot more women. There's a lot more women who are like, especially in Canada, there's a lot more First Nations people working on the digs of like Haida and Inuit and things like that, where they're doing their own, they're studying their own people, which is really pretty amazing. And there's a lot more of that in Canada now than there ever used to be. And I
Oh,
think there's a
that's
lot more
good.
Indigenous people involved in archaeology just all over the US, which is really, really cool. And there's a lot
Yeah.
more respect for other people's cultures, and museums not just taking stuff that doesn't belong to them and grave robbing, which is what they did
Right.
for years.
Right.
There's a lot of ugly stuff in archaeology, but I think with a dig, there can be some misogyny just because you're isolated, you're in a your place for 2 months. In general, though, the camaraderie of archaeology is the one thing I love. Like when you're on a good dig and you have a good director, it's like really great experience. And we would have nights where we'd sit and drink beer and we talk about our experiences and share things that we've learned and that we've done. And I loved it. But I will say too, like to be a professional archaeologist, like to be a museum curator or a professor, that is cutthroat. There are not many jobs available. There's very few for the people that get their degrees. So a lot of archaeologists go into contract archaeology, which is fine. But for those people like TJ and Amelia who maybe want that brass ring, that professor job, those are tough to get.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I can agree with that firsthand. I think a professorship, being a full time professor anywhere in any discipline, is those are coveted
Mm-hmm.
jobs. They're very hard to get. I'm an adjunct professor, and yeah, to go from adjunct to full
Yeah.
time, it's hard. It's like they always need somebody to teach that one
Yes.
class where a
Yeah.
teacher has dropped out. But are we going to ask the state to pay you, whatever it is for a full time salary? No. Yeah, those are hard jobs to get. I think the last time I applied for one, it was like there were like 100
Oh
candidates.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost 100 candidates. And of course, some of them have doctorates, which
Yes.
I only have a master's
Me too.
at this point. But how do you compete against somebody with a doctorate when that's like one of the major qualifying things in that profession? But contract archaeology, when you mentioned that in Tour Wars, I thought, wow, I didn't even know that that was a thing and that existed, but it also explains. I was reading a historical romance by Beverly Jenkins,
Mm-hmm.
and she was talking about the reason that she kind of started writing this particular romance was she found an article that was talking about black people in Oklahoma or something, and
Mm-hmm.
they were doing a
Oh
dig.
wow.
Yeah, they were doing a dig of something, and like they were finding all of these old artifacts, and they were talking about how they found these artifacts about black people out there in the old west. I can't remember if it was actually in Oklahoma or where actually it was, or Utah, or so. I can't remember exactly where they did the dig, but it was out in the West. And I thought to myself as I was reading Tour Wars, I thought to myself, oh, so this is kind of how they find some of this stuff. There's contract archaeology, and they don't just go and just start grading off a site without actually having somebody come in and say, well, is this a burial site?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or what happened with the house that we tore down here? Maybe we need to figure out what's underneath the
Yeah.
foundation or whatever. I'm kind of in an area right now where they're doing a lot of construction, and that's also kind of made me think now about, wonder if they are actually bringing in a contract archaeologist to do this, right? To actually look at this site before they start, building a new Starbucks or whatever it is. Is that something that normally developers do, or is it just when they find out something about a site, they'll bring in somebody? How does that work?
Well, I worked in California when I was working getting my master's. I was working in the archaeology records office, and so we had these sort of giant maps. We call them topographic maps of all these different counties in California. And archaeologists would come to us because California has strict rules about things like doing record searches and studying areas before they have construction projects. I don't know about other states. So the archaeologists would come to us and they would look at the maps and they'd look and see if there's any records of sites. That was where they'd start. And then they might survey the area, like do a walking ground survey. And then if they find stuff, they might do a small excavation and it might become a bigger excavation. And in theory, that's supposed to happen before, the big construction or grading. But I don't know I think it might vary from state to state, but California was pretty strict about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. And who knows about our state, but you always kind of think about that. So that's like even like pre-survey process. Like when you see the surveyors come out, they probably already have an archaeologist actually come in. Yeah. Y'all, we are nerding out here about this, but when you say archaeology, the first thing you think of is Indiana Jones and finding, some kind of rare jewel or something like that. And it's not always like that. But to me, still pretty interesting and still pretty cool.
It is. And I really never found like anything you'd call treasure. People would always say, did you find anything cool? And I'd be like, yeah, but it isn't like treasure. It's not like a golden artifact or an idol or an Ark of the Covenant.
Right. This would be a very different discussion if you had found the Ark of the Covenant. I'd be like, Carla Luna, my employer.
No, that would have been cool. But no, and actually too, when I would work in other countries, the stuff stays there. So if I worked in Cyprus, everything goes to the Cyprus Department of Antiquities. It doesn't go back to, even though I was on a dig with United States, university or college or whatever, everything stays in the country, which is awesome. And they didn't used to do that. The British especially would take stuff back to, Britain. They would take the artifacts. Right. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston is full of Egyptian artifacts.
Yes.
But now they stay in the country, which is much better.
Yeah. And that's good. And I'm glad that that's happening. I think too, it gives people who are actually there a chance to learn about their own history.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the way that it needs to be. But so yes, I'm finding out all of this stuff about archaeology. I'm rethinking Indiana Jones, but I'm loving Indiana Jones still. Too. And I love the Mummy still. So you've got to tell me about some nerd out moments that you've had with these. Now, please tell me that you had at least one like mummy-like experience. Like you've had an experience where, you found something and it was like creepy or something. I mean, it didn't have to be like the Mummy, but you know what I'm saying.
I wish I did. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the places I've worked. There was a lot of fun. There was a lot of, again, shenanigans. There was a lot of bonding, but I can't think of anything where, I think if I dug like in the jungles of Mexico and stuff, they're still finding lost cities there. But, where I dug, most of it wasn't anything that you would be like, I don't know, that's really amazing. Or, I mean, I love the Indiana Jones movies. I love the Mummy too, but nothing that I experienced was like that. I'm sad to say. I'm just trying to rack my brain for digs that I've been on, and not really. I mean, there was one time when we were in Jordan and we were having dinner at a restaurant, and Arabic numbers and writing is different. And we paid the bill, and then we were going out to the truck, and this guy came up with a giant cleaver coming after us because we had underpaid, because we had read the numbers wrong in Arabic. And he was like, yelling at us in Arabic that we had to pay more money. And that was on us, but it wasn't really part of the dig. It was just kind of a funny experience.
That's an Indiana Jones experience right there. Like that is totally Indiana right there.
Yeah, because the guy had this big knife, and he was like the cook or whatever, and he's coming after us. We're like, oh my gosh, what do we do?
So when you look at movies like that and treasure hunter kind of things and these kinds of shows like that, are you picking them apart and saying, well,
Nah.
they're not doing this right or
No, I'm
whatever?
having fun. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my all-time favorite movie of all time. I have most of it memorized. My brother and I recite the lines to each other. I love Indy and Marion are one of my favorite couples as far as couples go. I also love the first Mummy. I mean, the character, I think this guy's name is Rick. Rick is the hero, is the
Yes.
name of this guy. So,
Oh, wow, really?
yeah,
Oh my
so
gosh, I love
I,
it.
I I love that movie. So I don't look at them that way. I did watch Raiders once when I was on a dig. We were on a naval base and we had a theater room and we watched it and we were all like yelling things at the screen, but it was in good fun. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of archaeologists enjoy the fact that Indiana Jones is hot and cool and just he's such a badass. So it's like, how
Yeah.
can I not like him, even if he does destroy temples and mess things up occasionally and
Right.
steal stuff and
Yeah. Yeah, because I was going to say, I'm like, well, he does a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't be doing on the
not anymore.
dig.
But to be fair, those movies are set in the 30s and like 40s, the first ones. And so
Yeah.
it was a different time, and that was when
Yeah.
there was a lot more of that going on, where the countries would just take stuff and they wouldn't record it, and now you couldn't get away with that. But yeah, it was a totally different time.
Yeah, yeah. And same thing about the mummy too. I think that was set in what, the 20s and the
So
30s or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. So yeah, so having, these British people taking stuff and
yeah,
and uncovering, some ancient mummy kind of thing. It's just wow,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what
But
did I ask you? Have you seen the movie Dune, the newer one?
I haven't seen Dune or Dune 2 yet, but my plan is to see both of them very soon
Okay,
because
yeah,
I have heard good things.
I really liked them a
And
lot. So the reason I mention is because I believe they were filmed in Jordan, in the
Mhm.
Jordanian desert, which is where I worked. And so like we would drive out to the desert and we spent the night in the desert, and the light
Yeah.
there and the hills and everything that you see in Dune, it's so beautiful, and that's what it's like. So that's really cool.
Oh wow. That is awesome. Oh man. Okay, now you make me want to see it
Yeah,
even more.
it's really pretty. Visually, it's pretty stunning.
Yeah, yeah. But so what are some other movies like that or TV shows like that that you kind of nerd out about or you kind of think,
I
wow,
Not
they're
too
really
many.
making us.
There aren't too many other archaeology ones, to be honest. Like, really, there's Indiana Jones and the Mummy for
Mhm.
archaeology. I mean, I like nerd culture in general. I love the original Star Wars trilogy. I love Lord of the Rings. Big fan of just science fiction and fantasy in general. I mean, I
Yeah.
watched a lot of it growing up. So, but I can't think of any other sort of adventure seeking, treasure hunting characters offhand. I never really played the video game with, I think it was Lara Croft or whatever.
Yes,
I
Tomb
never
Raider.
played that. Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
I never played that
I was
one.
gonna ask you. if you watched any of those movies because that was
No,
Angelina
I
Jolie,
haven't
and I
seen
think
those.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I haven't seen those, but I love movies where there's like heists or where they're looking for treasure, or they're trying to like get a
yes,
crew together. I love that kind of thing.
yes.
I would love to write a heist book, but that's really hard. That would be a
Yes. You know what? I feel kind of the same way. It with the heist book, you almost have to I'm thinking you're almost going to have to reverse engineer it kind of like a
yes, yeah,
mystery,
yeah. That's a
and
good
I'm
point.
not good with that,
No,
but
me
I
neither.
love
Yeah.
heist movies. I love reading stuff. There's this show and I was going to do a podcast episode on it, but the show kind of kept going and the hype kind of died down for it. But there's this show on Netflix. It's called Lupin.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah,
Do you love
I
that show
love
or
it.
what?
Yes. I've only seen the
Yes.
first season, but I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Really good.
Oh, yeah. You have. I think they dropped the third season. I'm not sure if they're gonna have a fourth. I can't
Okay.
remember if they
I
said
gotta
they're
catch
gonna
up.
have a fourth. But yes, you have got to see. You have got to finish watching it.
Yes.
It's so awesome. but it totally gives you that heist moment, right? It totally
Yes.
gives you that, that
Yeah.
whole feeling of, I'm going to put together this elaborate scheme and all of this other kind of stuff going on. Yes, I love in some
Yes.
lifetime somewhere we are sisters. But yes, I love the Italian Job.
Mhm.
I love all the Oceans
Oh
movies.
gosh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't,
Love
yes.
those.
I mean, I love a good heist movie. And you're right. Writing that is got to be difficult.
Oh, I imagine, yeah.
But yeah, but for all the nerdy romantics out there, if you are totally into heist stuff like we are, and you're totally into all of these little nerding out mentions that we are, if you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the
Mhm.
comments. If you are just listening to this, send me an email. Tell me all of the lovely heist things that you love. If you are nerding out about the Mummy and Indiana Jones like we are, tell me what you think, because I just want more. It would especially be good out there if you knew some good heist books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I am trying to rack my brain now about some good heist books. Because that would be awesome. I'm always into a good mystery thriller.
Mhm. Yeah. I
But
can't write them though. I don't have that those
yeah.
chops.
Yeah, exactly. But I love the lane that you are in, Carla.
Thank
This lane of the nerdy romance. Okay? You are officially a nerdy
All
romantic.
right.
I have knighted you or
Thank
whatever they
you.
do. Yes, you are official, and I love that you're in this space writing this. I will say too, I love the fact that you're writing steamy on
Oh,
some
good.
level. Because that's also a thing I really like
Me
too.
too.
Even though it's a slow burn, but
Yeah.
I like a slow burn steamy
Mhm.
though.
Me too.
Because if I know that it's steamy going in, I know at some point,
You're gonna get it. Yes. Or they're gonna get it.
yes, right? Exactly. They are going to have some
Yes.
fun at some
Yes.
point. And the fact that that this one is rivals to lovers, y'all, it makes the slow burn even better
Mhm.
because you can feel the tension between them, and it's just yummy. It's just totally yummy and delicious. But there are a lot of other, because they do so much stuff, y'all. There are a lot of other really cool characters in this book. I'm wondering what characters out of this book are we going to see in the next book? Or are we?
Well, I think this is the end of the series for now. For now, I'm taking a
Okay.
break. So I could write a novella about someone like Cheska, who's the other guide, or Davis, who's the sort of wannabe influencer, and actually Sophia, who kind
That's
of
what I
comes
was
in a little
thinking,
bit.
y'all.
Sophia's the foodie travel influencer. She is in
Yes.
a novella called Lost and Found in Mexico that is with my newsletter. So if you sign up for my newsletter, you get a novella featuring Sophia Sanchez, who part of it takes place in Vegas and part of it takes place on a dig in the Yucatan Peninsula. So
Oh, wow. Tell us where to get your newsletter.
just you can go on my website and there's a sign up link there, and yeah, and you'll get this fun novella featuring Sophia, and she's this younger sister of Olivia who is in Field Rules, but she also makes an appearance in Tour Wars.
Okay, cool. So, usually with all of my authors, I do a rapid fire
Okay,
round. I have some rapid fire questions. And
sure.
so, just tell me the first thing that comes to mind or whatever. And hey, if you don't know, just say you don't know. It's cool. So, here we go. First question. We already know the answer to this one, though. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars for sure.
Obviously, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows I'm a Trekkie, but I do have much love for Star Wars,
Hmm.
so I'm totally cool with that. First romance that you read and you thought, I want to write romance.
Honestly, it might have been in middle school. I was reading Victoria Holt Gothic romances, which were
What?
always like on windswept moors, and the woman was always like a governess or something, and there was a brooding
Yes.
chateau owner. And I love those. I think I read most of her books, these Gothic romances.
Oh, wow. I love that. So, third favorite trope.
So probably I would say fake dating is one of mine, or fake engagement. I love that. And I also like only one bed, only one tent, that kind of thing. Those are my two
Yeah.
faves.
Yeah, forced
Yeah.
proximity. So, are those your favorite to read or to write or both?
I would say to read. I like reading. I only written one fake dating and one forced proximity, but I love to read them. I mean,
Yeah.
to write, I don't know. I've written Friends to Lovers, and I think Rivals to Lovers was really fun though. I want to do that again. I would
Yeah.
definitely do that
Yeah.
again.
Oh, cool. Your best book boyfriend that you wrote.
Oh boy, I think of all of them. I was thinking about that one. It would be this guy, Rafael Sanchez, who is the a chef. He's a hot Mexican American chef, and he's just really he's a good cook, which is amazing. And he's sort of used to be a bad boy, and now he's trying to come clean, and he's just can cook amazing food. So I would of my books, that would probably be my pick.
Okay. And for those who are not watching, what's the name of that
Oh,
book?
that is White Wedding. So that is a Blackwood Sellers book, White Wedding, and it's about a wedding planner and a chef, and it's set at a
Okay.
Christmas wedding extravaganza.
Awesome. Your favorite book boyfriend that you didn't write
So
that
this
maybe you
one's kind
read.
of old school, but I read this fantasy when I was years ago called Poison Study that I just love by Maria V. Snyder. And the guy in that who's like this assassin, his name was Valak. He was like the hottest book boyfriend ever. And for a long time, he was like my number one. Now, I don't know if people will have read this book. It came out a long time ago, but it was a really popular fantasy novel. But he is my number one book boyfriend.
All right. And tell us, okay. Oh, one more question. I'm
Ooh,
sorry.
yeah.
Don't know where I went with that. One more question. What is your favorite fantasy, sci-fi slash nerdy series or
Oh,
scenario?
I don't know. I will say I love the original Star Wars trilogy. I have seen those movies so many times that I don't even know. Like I can't even count. I've seen the original Star Wars. I saw that one. I'm so old. I saw that one 10 times in theaters. The New Hope.
Oh
So
wow. But it did but didn't it come out? It came out and it got re-released.
yeah, I
Like
saw
didn't it
original
get
in '77 when I was 11. Then I'm pretty and I saw it like in the theaters over and over again.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
awesome. I love it.
And I actually
Oh,
was our theater had the one of the world premieres of Return of the Jedi, and at that time nobody knew the truth about Luke and his father. Nobody. So
wow.
we spent 3 years debating after Empire Strikes Back came out and we have the reveal, I am your father. 3 years we waited to find out what the answer was.
Oh my God. And now that's like a culture thing.
Yeah,
That's
everyone
like
knows it.
something that's right. Everybody knows it. And everybody knows when they say, Luke, I am your
Yeah,
father. Everybody knows where that's from. It's so ingrained in our culture.
yeah.
That is
But at the
wow.
theater, when I saw Empire the first time, it was like the whole theater went silent. We were like, what? What? We couldn't believe it. We just were like
Oh my.
stunned. And then we were arguing, no, it can't be true. Darth Vader's lying. It can't be true. We wouldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh, that is so wow. That is cool.
Yeah.
That is, I'm sorry, you've said a lot of cool things here, but it's got to be the coolest.
That's
I would
pretty
love to
cool.
be a fly on the wall for that. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's wild. Okay, so tell us what you have coming next that we can look forward to.
So right now, I don't have anything immediate planned. I'm doing a lot of in-person events, and I have to write a lumberjack short story for an anthology that I have to start very soon, and I haven't started it yet. And I've never written about lumberjacks, so that's going to be a new one for me. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. I have I know at least one person that's also writing about lumberjacks as well. So yeah,
yeah,
is the whole anthology gonna be lumberjack
yeah. I think it's called
boyfriends?
Rough and Rugged. It's mountain men and lumberjacks, and it's for this event called Meet Me in Milwaukee in August. So I'm one of the authors for that, and so I have to get started on that like this weekend because it's due in a little under a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little
All
behind.
right. So we may need to cut this short so
No,
she can
I'm
get
okay. I'm
writing,
okay.
everybody. So, Carla, tell all of us where to find you online or how to connect with you, how to get your books, all
Okay.
that good stuff.
So my books are everywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop, Kobo, Google Play, Smashwords, anywhere. I'm all over, everywhere. I'm not just on Amazon. My website, carlalunabooks.com, is where you can find out info about my books and events, and I have like little blog entries about my travels too. And then I'm on my social media handles are really bad because I joined social media at different times when before I had an actual brand. So I'm on Instagram a lot as I'm at Carla Luna Cullen. That's my full name. Cullen is my married name. But I like Carla Luna because I don't want people thinking that I'm like a Twilight person, because of the Cullen
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Cullen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
used to
I
get that
get
a
you
lot
there.
about the vampires. But so if you
Yeah.
go on my website, it has the links to all my socials. And like I said, Instagram is good. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X sometimes. But yeah, my website is a good starting place.
All right, great. And so we will look for you there and we will
Okay.
look for those lumberjack mountain men as well.
Yeah.
Because if you can if you can write TJ, then yes, we need to see what else is going on
Right.
out there. And everybody, pick up. This is book 3.
Mhm.
Sounds like it might be a trilogy at this point. So pick up books 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I will say, as a reader, you'll be happy with book 3 if that's the only one you're going to pick up, but you're going to want to pick up 1 and 2 because that's exactly how I felt at the end. I was like, I want more of these folks.
Yeah. They're all standalones, but they're fun to read together.
Yeah, they are. And Carla, it was so great meeting you. It was so great having you on here. And good luck to you with all of these books. But we may have to have you back on. So thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you.
While that's the end of our discussion, it's not the end of the story, so to speak. We now have premium episodes, which you can get in your feed, wherever you listen to podcasts, or in your inbox if you listen on nerdyromanticspodcast.com. And if you want to know more about the Nerdy Romantics world, sign up for our newsletter. Visit my website at nerdyromanticspodcast.com for more details. Now that's the end of the story. Until next time, thank you for listening.